Welcome to episode 3 on the stereo field. The intent of this video is to understand how to give space to our sounds. The course overview will be going over the mono and stereo fields, as well as psychoacoustics, which is how humans interpret and perceive sound. So today's episode is pretty fun in my opinion. We're going to go over what audio is comprised of and how to fit it in different spatial environments and tweak it to just give it movement and bring it to life. So to start, audio is comprised of 3 signals. Your mono channel, which sits in the middle, it's the main presence of your song. And then that is cushioned by a stereo field, which is a left and right signal that gives it width and space. Right now we're going over mono. So this is the bass loop we're working with today. And if we just want the mono signal, we can throw a utility on and simply click mono. And then now it's just going to be in the center. So before, and then after. Now, we can also do this with an EQ. So we're going to learn more assets about the EQ8. I'm just going to drag a fresh one on here. This one's old. Bear with me. Let me delete this. Okay, so original EQ8. Now, if we go to mode, it's on stereo right now. That's the stock setting. So if we were to cut half of this information out, we're still going to get the mono and stereo, but only the low part of the sound. Like so. Now, if we click that mode and we switch to MS, right now we are on the mono EQ. If we click the letter M, we are now on the side EQ. So you can probably guess already that if we were to cut all of this mono channel out, we only get the stereo information. And vice versa. If we click the letter M again to go to S, and we were to cut out all of the side information, it's now back to mono. So that is what the mono channel is. This is what mono looks like. Let me go ahead and do a very quick side-by-side. So this is a original bass loop, and then this more light purple one is in mono. It doesn't look that much different. You can see that this one has more black color to it, more data and grains, because this is obviously missing the side information, but it's clearly still going to look the same because this sound is very heavy in the mono. So that is what mono is. Okay, now we're going to go over the stereo field. So what I did is I soloed just the stereo field and I freeze and flattened it, and it looks and sounds like this. This top one here is the mono, this bottom one is the stereo, and as you can see, these audio signals are pretty much the exact same shape as the mono channel, which is a great stereo field when these sounds are equally balanced and fitting your mono, because it will create a nice equal balance for your entire sound and give it a nice 3D shape. Now, I also soloed the left and right because this stereo field, this top signal, is the left, this bottom one is the right. So this is just the left one right now playing. And this bottom one right here is just the right. So to do that, what we would do is we would take our bass loop here. And one way to do this is with the utility. You'd slap that on, and this balance knob determines where you pan the sound. So if we move it all the way left, just the left signal. And if we move it all the way right, just the right signal. Like so. Now, there's another way to do this, and it's utilizing the EQ8 again. So if we click mode, and rather than going to stereo or MS, we actually click LR. And if we are on the edit section for L, and we cut all of this information out, you guessed it, we only get the right signal now. So if we bring this this left information back, and we click on the L to go to R, and we cut out the right information, we're only going to get the left side. So that is how you can determine whether or not you want to cut out or boost your stereo field for specifically the left and right channel. Now, there are other ways to boost your stereo field, which we'll go over right now. The first one we're going to do is serum effects. So if we click hyper dimension, there are 2 options. There's hyper and dimension. We're going to do hyper first. This is going to increase more voices of the sound. It's literally going to duplicate the audio file multiple times. So if we have 7 unison, that means there's 7 versions of that sound playing. And here's a really good visual example of that. We'll actually hop over to just the synthesizer of Serum. So as you can see, we have this saw wave here. And if we increase the unison all the way up to 16, now there's 16 of these playing. I'm just going to adjust these so you can see the different versions of it. 7. Now, if we adjust the detune, it determines how wide those voices play. So full detune is the widest. And if we shrink it, it's pretty much mono. By the way, detuned sounds, like detuned chords, are actually used in a lot of like spooky, scary like movies and stuff like that, because it's a very unharmonic, distasteful sound. It just sounds horrible and scary because it's detuned. It's not like in harmony with anything, and it just sounds like chaos because it's literally not in harmony with anything. It's chaos. Moving on, back on how to adjust your stereo field. So we'll go back to serum effects. Here's the hyper dimension. We'll increase it 7 voices, adjust the detune and the rate, and we'll increase the mix as we go, and you'll see the sound widen. That's one way to do it. Now, the dimension is actually a delay. The size will increase how much or how big the delay is, and then the mix obviously increases how much delay there is. As you can see, it's kind of like glitching in the background. That's the delay stuttering to the original sound. So that's one way to adjust your stereo field. The next is just a traditional delay. This is Ableton stock delay. And this is at 50% dry wet and 50% feedback, so it's going to sound a little weird. As you can see, it's all over the place, but we can shrink the feedback and dry wet to kind of tune it up. That's not too bad. That's some stereo width. Now, another one is an echo. And the echo is different than the delay, even though they look and act similarly. They just sound different. So that's one way with the echo. And then the next is a reverb. And a reverb will spread the mono channel and the stereo width channel into the reverb and just create like a whole new stereo field. Kind of just giving its own room for the sound. We will go into all of these effects far more in depth. I just wanted to do a little bit of an overview on all of them to just discuss how to manipulate your stereo field, how to increase it, and things like that. Now, the last part of this video, we're going to be getting into psychoacoustics and some reverb stuff. We'll do EQ placement first. So psychoacoustics is the way that human beings perceive and interpret sound based off of pitch, and spatial cues and things like that. And you can use an EQ to kind of give the perception to people that a sound is below them, above them, moving from the left and right and things like that. So we'll play the original bass loop again. Now we can make it feel like it's below us by doing a low pass filter like this. You know, we're just getting some of the lows and a little bit of the mids, and it feels like it's in the room, like below us maybe, or like it's in like a locker or something like that, or a cabinet. And then we can even draw in an automation by right-clicking that frequency knob on the low pass filter and just clicking a dot and dragging it up. And as you'll see, this EQ down here will open up, and it's going to sound like it's below us and then kind of rising up in front of us. So that is the automation drawing up, or we drew in an automation that is moving up the EQ and moving that sound closer to us. So that is one example of a psychoacoustic movement. The next would be a notch filter that's moving up. So as you can see, it's ducked right here. So this is what it sounds like without any movement. All of the mid information is cut, but we still have some of the lows and highs. Feels very interesting. And then when we draw in an automation to move it again, it sounds like it's coming towards us. So that is another example. And then we have something above us, which is the opposite of below, obviously, and it's a high pass filter like this. Somewhere in the sky, and then you want it to fall down with this automation. So that's another version. And then we also have a bandpass EQ. So this is a bandpass. As you can see, this shape here, it's just like a little hill in the middle for the mids. and then we can open it up over time. Just another way to help move your sounds and kind of sneak them in and surprise people with it. The next thing we're going to go over, this is so cool in my opinion, it's called the convulsion reverb, and it's wild. But before I get into that, I want to give you a little quick history lesson. So the very first track to ever be recorded with reverb was in 1947. It's called Peg O' My Heart. And what this guy did, Bill Puntman, is that he put a microphone and speaker in a bathroom, and because it was like tiled, it would the speaker sound, or the music coming out of the speaker, excuse me, would reverberate off the tile and then be recorded back into that microphone, which kind of sounds like this. And for 1947, that was like insane for people. I actually happen to really enjoy this music. I hope you do too. If you don't, you should probably listen to some old like 1930s, 40s, like the Glenn Miller Band and all that swing music. Phenomenal, the golden age of music. But anyways, yeah, so that was the very first reverb. We're going to go over some reverb stuff right now. So I believe hybrid reverb is free and comes with Ableton, and it's a stock effect. And this thing is a very powerful reverb. And we'll do a whole separate video on reverbs, but I just want to quickly show you some parameters on this. So if we click the serial number here, we can switch it to convulsion reverb by changing its algorithm. So if we turn this off and show the before, and then with it on, as you can see, it's giving a very interesting spatial field to it. And what this convulsion reverb doing is it's making a reverb fit whatever this audio file is in here. And what's so neat about this effect is I can click and drag this audio file into the hybrid reverb. And now what this essentially did is the reverb just took like a selfie of that audio file, and it's going to create the reverb to the shape of that audio file that you dragged in there. We can click on the EQ section up here, and I'm just gonna cut all the sub out, because if you reverb sub, it just like blows out and goes crazy and is super noisy. So I'm just gonna kind of cut that out right now. And let's go ahead and listen to this with this new file in. I'm adjusting the decay down here. It was ringing out and giving a bunch of like stutters and glitches because the decay was too long, which is the length of the reverb. So we're going to shorten this. Adjust the size right here. And we can adjust how wide we want the reverb with the stereo knob on the top right. And we can adjust and mix it in. So hybrid reverb, very cool. And you can switch to a convulsion with this parameter down here. Remember, there are other ones which we'll get into. This thing is just like so unbelievably powerful and complex, but yeah, that's that. The next thing that we're going to get into is Ableton's Convulsion Reverb Pro, which is very similar to the reverb that we just went over on convulsion mode. Excuse me, I'm burping. I've been eating a lot of protein today and energy drinks. That's me. But anyways, Convulsion Reverb Pro is the same as like the hybrid reverb, except it's only convulsion, which just is essentially, again, taking selfies of different rooms and environments and creating reverb to that selfie. So if we click on the type option down here, these are all the different genres of reverbs that you can get. And if like you go to real places and then you click right next to where it says IR, and you click on this name, these are all a bunch of reverb selfies of real places in like the real world. So like this is St. Albans Cathedral. And if you were to take this bass loop and play it completely dry in St. Albans Cathedral, you would get like the same reverb, but with this, you're getting it with this effect. I have to EQ out the lows because you can hear it rumbling through. Unfortunately, the EQ and the convulsion reverb only gives you a shelf option. You can't just like put a brick wall to cut it out, so you have to do this. But yeah, this is St. Albans Cathedral, which I think is just so cool. I don't know if we can click and drag this in here. Oh, you can. So you can click and drag your own audio files in here. I didn't know that. News to me. Wow, we both learned something. But I'm going to go ahead and switch this to ambience and small rooms. And then I'm going to change the type to small and bright ambience because I believe that this is a more manageable selfie to control. I'm just tweaking some parameters right now to fine tune it just so you guys can see. So that's not a bad reverb layer behind. And yeah, I would definitely recommend getting a convulsion reverb like in the beginning of your music producing career, because the more that you can learn this and the better that you're able to use this and the more experience you get, I guarantee you your music's going to stand out so much more than other people. And here's another reason why, is because under this convulsion reverb setting, if you click on the position, you can determine where your sound sits within that selfie that it took, within that space that it's creating. So right now, it's sitting in the far background. It's really far away from us with this knob. As you can see, it's like in the back of the room. Now we can click and drag this knob forward to have it directly in front of us. And I'm just going to move this around so that you can perceive it in different spaces. So cool, in my opinion. I think that's just unbelievably magical. But what I did is I put it in the far back part of the room, so at 100% depth. I right-click the parameter to the depth. I click Show Automation, and then I just drew in a line from 100 to 0 so that it's really far away from us and then it moves closer. And then I freeze and flatten that, so this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's super washed out because it's real far, like behind us or like in front of us, you know? And then as it gets closer and closer, it just comes like right in front of our faces. So let's listen. I think that is so sick. So yes, all of this is the convulsion reverb and the hybrid reverb, and understanding how to move your sounds in a specific space. And remember that you can drag your own audio files into these reverbs to make the reverb fit that specific audio file. You can drag anything you want in here, your own voices and stuff. Once you start dragging in like other weird stuff, I don't know if this is going to sound good. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but we're just going to take... Let's just take this bass loop and throw it in and see what this sounds like with this reverb to have some fun. I mean, now we have a completely different tonal layer sitting in the background of our sound. Obviously, this isn't super clean, but as you can see, you can really fine tune these if you start dragging in and experimenting with different bass loops, because you're creating like these hidden cushion layers behind your sound that can create so much depth. And it's literally just one reverb. There are so many other like layers you could add to this to just make them explode. Fantastic. We got lesson 3 out of the way for the Schoolhouse series. Today we went over the mono channel, which is the channel that sits heavy in the center. It's the main part and the main chunk of your sound. And then we went over the stereo field with the left and right channels that cushion that and give it some nice stereo width to make it feel 3D. And then we went over some psychoacoustics stuff on understanding how to move your sound with an EQ to come from different directions. And then obviously the convulsion reverb with all of its fun magic. In the next lesson, we're going over a little bit of some musical knowledge on how to stay in key and all of the octaves and things like that. So I'll catch you over there.